Well, a very good morning and welcome to the Autumn Budget Overview for 2025 here at Simplicity. My name is Vincent Seddon. I'm the Customer Success Director here at Simplicity, and I'm also delighted to be joined by my colleague Marie Wayman, who is our Operations Manager, and we'll be talking in and around the Autumn Budget, but we'll also be talking about other things that might be affecting the recruitment industry at the moment and in the coming months. And I think it's a really topical time to be holding this webinar, certainly with the budget yesterday, but we're also in a bit of a topsy-turvy environment at the moment. And who knows what we're likely to see, which kind of gives us a huge challenge in terms of preparation to make sure that we're ready for things ahead over the coming months. So this webinar is being live streamed across several platforms. There will be a recording available at the end of today's session, and the session is likely to last about half an hour. We'll be running through some pre-prepared areas of the budget. We'll also be talking about some areas of impact for our industry, and there will also be an opportunity for Q&A. If you do have any questions, please pop them into the chat facility and we'll try and get to them throughout today's interactive session. If we don't manage to get to your question, don't worry, we will ensure that we answer all questions and get them out to the attendees today. So over the last few days, we've been spending some time reviewing the budget. We've been looking at some of the key messages that have come out from the Labour government and trying to get our head around some of those key changes that we're likely to see. And on top of that, we're also trying to keep ahead of some of those changes to making work pay that we're likely to see over the next few months. So we'll talk about those as we get through today. But just as a general overview, Marie, we were talking about this yesterday. What's your thoughts on the budget and the level of impact that we're likely to see within our industry?
Yeah, okay. So, as we can see in the general overview, there aren't that many immediate impacts to the industry right now, but there are quite a few long-term considerations that we hope to bring to life through this webinar.
Absolutely. I think
hmm
from some of the key messages that I've heard and some of the webinars that I've managed to
hmm
get on post budget, quite a lot of people are saying it could have been a lot worse.
hmm
Um, we're certainly not seeing any major impact straight away. However, that doesn't mean that we can bury our head in the sand and just assume it's all going to be okay,
No,
because
absolutely
I
not.
think there might be some things that come to bite us in the coming years that will start to add impact
hmm
if they are still a thing in a few years. As we know, some of the actions that are put in place at the moment don't necessarily happen as they were first meant to. So let's get started. There's a few different areas of the budget that we want to focus on, and we've tried to keep this specific to recruitment. One of the first things, and I think quite a topical subject, is around the two-child benefit limit and some of the welfare reforms. So,
hmm
Marie, what impact might this have on our industry, positive or negative?
Yeah, sure. So the reversal of the two-child benefit limit and the changes to sickness and work capability assessments could reduce financial pressure for some families. So making that return to work more feasible and attractive for them. Um, Also, more individuals will be required to engage with job searches, therefore widening the labour pool for recruitment businesses out there. And we hope to see more candidates seeking those flexible part-time roles.
Okay, and do you think that with that in mind, then we might see a change in the marketplace from a job seeker perspective?
Yeah, I'd say there's a reasonable chance that we'll see more job seekers enter the market. The new welfare to work rules emphasize activation, which includes supporting those individuals that may have been off on long-term sick and more prevalent the younger generation as well. The upward pressure on business costs, like the taxes and predicted payroll expectations, may see more demand for employers needing that flexible workforce rather than permanent employees. So, with that in mind, agencies may see a wider range of job readiness levels, which in turn creates the opportunity to grow their candidate pools, which will then in turn see more candidates registering for their business. And we may see more demand for skills training or basic onboarding support for some of those individuals.
Okay, that's really interesting, isn't it? I think over the last couple of months, we've seen quite a pivot in the recruitment industry.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a huge. Certainly, I've spoken to a number of typically perm agencies that have been operating for several years,
Mm-hmm.
and they've had great businesses. However, because of various different things, not necessarily linked to the budget, but changes to some of the Labour government, some of the actions that they're taking or proposed to take, we've seen quite a lot of perm agencies flip over to temp,
Mm-hmm.
or try to flip over to temp because there's been quite a crash in perm placements.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that these changes might further impact that, or they might positively impact? Do you think there would be any link there?
Yeah, well, I think given the reversal in the day one rights on, I know that was something you wanted to bring up,
Yeah.
unfair dismissal. I
Hmm.
think that may give employers more comfort in taking on permanent roles.
Hmm.
Um, but equally, because of the changes, because of the budget, and there being a potential demand for that flexible workforce, we could see it bounce either way.
Mm. It would be interesting to see now, for those of you listening as well, if you haven't seen any of the recent news regarding the U-turn that Keir Starmer's made. Late yesterday evening, we saw a huge U-turn on the day one worker rights, and we're led to believe that that's been scrapped, and the limit has been brought down to 6 months. Which would typically work quite nicely into a probation period.
Hmm.
So if you haven't seen it, that was a hot topic yesterday evening, where we have seen a huge U-turn. So we may see another U-turn in some of the habits that we're seeing in the recruitment industry now, and hopefully we might see an influx on perm placements again, or the appetite for clients to want to move towards perm instead of trying to have that
Mm.
flexible workforce. So, that might be a positive thing, as you quite rightly said, Marie. Let's see if we can
Mm.
even out those hiring trends. Okay, so
Yeah.
we've spoken about some impacts there and what we may see or may not see. So, in your opinion, Marie,
Hmm.
what are the key things that agencies might need to think about or prepare in case of an influx of job seekers, which could cover both temp and perm, I suppose?
Yeah. So absolutely, strengthen screening and onboarding. That make those workflows as efficient as possible. If you're going to get that influx, you want to be able to work through those quickly and efficiently. Offer digital pre-employment checks. There's plenty of platforms out there that will do ID checks for you, right to work checks. And for some of these candidates that will appear in the work pool, is offer CV writing support for them, to make them more attractive to your potential clients. And more importantly, build talent pools in key growth areas, which I know we'll talk about a little bit more later. But have that goal to fill bookings as soon as that demand is there in front of you.
So efficiency is key, I suppose, there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take the opportunity, run with it, and make it happen. And
Hmm.
I think that's quite a common trend, isn't it, at the moment? You've got to be quick. If you've got an opportunity that's come in, across your desk, you've got to grab it with both hands and
Mm.
and make it work. But we can only do that if you've got great planning and preparation behind the scenes for an agency to react quickly, I suppose.
Yeah, that acting quickly, I think, will be key.
Okay,
Yeah.
so some key things there, and hopefully some top tips for some of our agencies out there. Some of the kind of actions and things that we're advising you to do is not new. This all comes back to running a successful business. So ensuring that you're trying to stay ahead of the game. And if you're listening to this webinar today, hopefully this is a good reminder of ensuring that you are keeping up to date with the latest trends in the industry.
Mm. So a question for you, Vincent, because I know this is more your area than mine. How will the budget tax measures affect agency clients?
So that word tax is always quite a taboo subject, I think, isn't it?
Hmm.
Depending on where you're applying this. But one of the key things that we saw in the budget was freezing tax thresholds.
Hmm.
So whilst this might not be a direct impact immediately, that freeze was announced to be in place for the coming few years. And that also means that quite a lot of workers might enter into that higher rate tax band without even knowing.
Hmm.
So the impact is looming, and I would say the impact might not be now, but it will be in the coming years. So it may make some clients more cost sensitive in terms of the impact it might have for the personal income tax and national insurance and things like that.
Hmm.
But it also may affect the way in which perm candidates might be hired. So it's keeping that in mind in terms of the salary that is attached to a role and what impact that might have on the individual. Like I said, it's probably not going to be immediately, but certainly over the coming years, there will be some impacts there. And maybe some unknown hidden impacts that might happen, and it's more of a reactive state than a proactive. So over the next few months and years, it's definitely something that we need to keep at the forefront of our mind, rather than the kind of thing that's talked about now, forgotten about, and then we don't talk about it again until it starts to impact individuals.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I think that's one of those hidden in the grass type things at the moment that we need to just keep an eye on.
Hmm.
Um,
Quite agree.
Okay. So with that in mind, what about contractors? We talk about contractors and flexible working arrangements
Hmm.
for our clients. What impact might it have on those?
Yeah, so where you've got contractors that may be engaging using their own limited company or personal service company, the the higher taxes on investment income and tighter pension relief rules will impact some of those contractors. So as the budget raises taxes on dividends, where those individuals may not be taking a salary but will be taking a payment based on dividends, they will see their tax levels rise from that aspect. Um, and because of that, we may see demand in higher higher fees for providing those services. For those individuals using umbrella companies, they may be using them to utilize the salary sacrifice and the pension arrangements in place. But because of the cap the budget is put in place with the 2000 on the NI threshold, um, that will reduce likely some of the usage going through umbrella companies for those reasons. And for PAYE workers, even with the increases on national minimum wage and the national living wage, because of these freezes on the tax and NI thresholds, um, they will likely experience reduced take home pay because their money is essentially going into those tax pots.
Okay. And when we apply the layer of working through an umbrella, that might become
Mm,
very important for worker take home pay. Okay. And what about
yeah.
IR35? Does this budget impact IR35 at all?
No, so there are no major changes announced in relation to IR35, but as always, it's just recommended that you always keep on top of your compliance, make sure that you're continuing to obtain those status determination statuses from end clients, and making sure that you're paying the workers in the realms of those statements.
Okay. All right.
Mm,
Interesting. So I guess
yeah,
it's keep your eyes open and keep seeing any potential impact that might occur
yeah,
from the budget
absolutely.
announcement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, Vincent, how will the public sector spending in the budget affect demand?
So I guess it's a little bit unknown, first of all,
Hmm.
and we're going to have to keep an eye on that. But within the budget, which I think we're all still trying to fathom out. It's definitely not been the most straightforward of budgets.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a number of people in my network that are experienced, shall we say, in these kind of things, and they're still trying to work it out as well. But one of the things that we've seen in the budget is that it protects large capital investments
Mm-hmm.
that are linked to things such as hospitals, housing, transport and rail, and the energy sector. So taking that into consideration, it's likely that we will see increased demand across
Mm-hmm.
certain sectors. So, for example, construction and trades and labour,
Mm-hmm.
engineering contractors, project staff, technical staff,
Mm-hmm.
skilled staff, and also into healthcare. So I really hope that
Mm-hmm.
some of these changes will increase demand for workforce, and that will
Yeah.
cover both temporary and permanent workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of flat curve, if you like, that we've seen in the industry for the last 18 months, 2 years, should start to see a surge. And if you look back at trends in recruitment, certainly over the last 20 years, we do see that seesaw approach, and it always recovers. And I really hope that this opportunity to increase capital investment across those areas will in turn increase demand for workforce. It goes hand in hand. So that should really benefit our industry, and of course our agencies that are ready to hopefully fill some of that demand.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree, Vincent. And I think that the government plans and ongoing investments in infrastructure, housing, and public works will continue to drive that demand for it in construction. Um, so agencies may then in turn see an increased demand, not just for labourers, but also those higher level skilled jobs for project managers, site managers, and skilled technical staff.
Absolutely. And I hate to then bring it back to a risk,
Mm,
but with that in mind, if we are seeing increased demand across some of those areas, we do know that some of those areas also attract some of the biggest risks as well. So if you are an agency out there and you are lucky enough to come across an opportunity to work in some of those sectors, always ensure that you do your due diligence and you complete your due diligence very well. If it's not something that you feel capable of doing, then there are plenty of companies out there that are willing to help and support. For one, here at Simplicity, we always try and ensure that we assess the risk on behalf of the agency. So if you are going to be working in some of those areas, make sure first of all you've assessed the risk that might be attached to you. So if you are going to have a vast increase on supply and demand, that also increases your risk as an agency. It might be very exciting when you get that opportunity come in and you think, wow, I'm going to make loads of money over the coming months. Great. However, what we do know is there is a risk in getting paid, and by the
mm,
time that your invoice is due for payment, you may have had 4 weeks of temporary workforce
mhm.
payments. So yes, it's great, and yes, hopefully it will increase the demand, but make sure that that's balanced, and you follow a measured approach in assessing that risk and making sure that you've got insurances in place, etc. Would you agree, Marie?
Oh, yeah, 100%. It all comes down to know your customer. Make sure you know who you're engaging with. Um, yeah,
Okay.
I second everything you say.
Okay, great. So with that in mind, then we've spoken quite a bit about where we might see some of that growth
Hmm.
and demand in sectors. But do you think have we missed any sectors that you think might benefit from that growth opportunity?
Yeah, of course. The healthcare and social care sector, there's always immense pressure on that particular industry. So I think the demands in those sectors will be there, and that they come through. Um, Manufacturing and logistics is another one. Um, as commerce and delivery services continue to grow, there will be an increased demand for warehouse and distribution staff. And agencies working in these areas should be prepared for these higher volume vacancies coming through.
Okay, well, higher volume, does that mean lower margin?
Could do. Could do.
Okay. Well, let's hope that we see such a demand increase that margin's no longer an issue.
Yeah, hopefully.
Watch this
So,
space.
Vincent, will regional recruitment benefit from the budget, in your opinion?
Well, again, it's hard to say, but linking it into the kind of theme that we've seen there, if you then break that down regionally, I think there is going to have to be a regional plan to be able to deliver some of these projects. And if we are seeing that capital investment being supported, then we should start to see regional opportunities. So if you take blue collar construction, for example, which is always quite a low margin opportunity but high volume, we should definitely start to see an increase in that to be able
Good.
to deliver the project. However, that does also go hand in hand with the requirement for materials, and I know that that's quite a key thing that we're thinking about at the moment. You know, whilst we might have the workforce, do we have the materials to be able to complete the project? I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that it's a key consideration that you know quite a lot of construction companies have been thinking about. But that also links into things like local authorities as well, needing to recruit, which is always a good opportunity for agencies to think about, because quite often this reduces the risk to you as an agency. Government funded projects are always normally you know quite good at paying, you know, unless unfortunately we see some local councils and things going you know into liquidation, which hopefully we won't see anymore. I know we did see a couple over the last couple of years, but that does de-risk the opportunity, hopefully. And then that links into temporary workforce. So at the moment, temporary workforce has kind of had a flat line, but hopefully we should see some benefit of increasing the temporary workforce demand. And then, of course, regional staffing partnerships and things like that. So I hope so is the answer to that question. It's unknown, but I hope it will have a positive impact, certainly within our industry.
Yeah, good. So how should agencies position themselves to capture any new demand which may be put in front of them?
So, first of all, I think you need to be true to who you are as an agency. If you're a healthcare agency, don't start thinking about going off trying to fulfill a construction contract. You've got to be niche in your area. So be famous for what you're good at, first of all. Ensure that you have a USP. And also think about where you might need to be in terms of the industry that you're working in. So follow some of those opportunities. Start with the end in mind. So if we are going to see capital investment in certain areas, then you need to be aware of that. So start thinking about maybe attending some of the local events that you might have in your area, some local commercial events, not necessarily where you're going to find new clients or candidates, but where are you going to find out about what's happening in your local constituency? Where is the fiscal overview going to be for you in the next 12, 18 months? Think about that to start your journey, and then start to map out a strategy. So if that's where we're likely to see some investment, what might that look like in terms of worker demand? And then try and link that back to potential clients that you might need to be in front of, and then start to network. That would be my biggest piece of advice. But first and foremost, be true to who you are. Don't try and pivot overnight just because there might be a shiny opportunity over in a different industry. Think about how you can make the best of what you are currently operating as at the moment.
Yeah, great.
And then on top of that, it's not all about winning new business. Quite a lot of what we should be focusing on at the moment is retention and having retention strategies. Quite often I will ask, not necessarily agencies, but any business owner, what is your retention strategy? And normally it's a very difficult question to answer because quite often people put a lot of time and energy into new business. And yes, that's great if you're looking at growth plans. However, you could end up having a vicious cycle of bringing a new business on and losing a customer. And it's a very costly and time consuming exercise to bring on a new business. So if you are thinking about how to grow your business, do not lose sight of your current client base, because your current client base is the one that's keeping you up at the moment. Think about how can you grow and enhance that whilst bringing on new opportunities.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Vincent.
No problem. Okay, so we'll move on now to any risks that recruitment agencies should be aware of. Now, we've spoken about some of these at the point where we felt that they might have been relevant in some of the things that we've spoken about today. But Maria, are you able to give us a bit of an overview of some of the key risks that our recruitment agency owners should be aware of, and where do they need to be focusing their time and energy at the moment?
Yeah, of course. So I think margin compression due to the rise in national living wage and the tax threshold freezes, it should be the main focus to begin with, because those types of changes can quickly erode any profitability that a recruitment business may be making week on week. Due to the increased cost of employment, clients may cut permanent recruitment budgets, although as we discussed earlier, we may see a flip in that because of the changes on the worker rights. And then the contractor rate sensitivity, with highly skilled workers may start demanding higher pay, which again in turn will squeeze those profit margins for recruitment businesses. So based on that, my recommendation to any recruitment businesses would be to start preparations now ahead of the changes in 2026. So start repricing those pay and charge rates early. Calculate the impact of what the national living wage increases will have on each client sector and the roles within those sectors, and adjust the rates proactively. And most importantly, make sure you're communicating that with your clients early. Have those early negotiation conversations so that it's already in place, ready for the changes in April 2026. And review productivity and profitability of each client, which I think you touched on earlier on, Vincent. Not all clients contribute equally to a business's revenue. Some may require more support than others. Some may require more compliance checks than others, and some may be just pay slowers. So it's slow payers. So it's about making those assessments and making sure that you've got the right client base to fit within your business.
Okay, some great pieces of advice there, and certainly, hopefully, some of the viewers today will have that built into their business plan for next year. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of today's session. It's gone extremely quickly. I can't believe we've been talking for the last 28 minutes. It seems to have flown by. So I have just put a reminder out to anybody that's watching live today. If you are with us and watching and you do have a question, please pop it in the chat. We'll try our very best to squeeze that in. But just whilst you might be thinking about some of those questions to ask, because I just wanted to kind of round up today. So I think first and foremost, the budget is definitely not as challenging as it could have been. There is definitely some areas that you need to take into consideration as recruitment agency owners. There's some key things that you need to think about moving forward. So higher payroll and compliance costs, clients becoming more price sensitive, contractor take-home pressures, and also the risk of your gross profit compression. So thinking about this from a business perspective. But there are some key opportunities. Hopefully, there should be some increased opportunities for workforce demand. We may even see some more job seekers entering the market that perhaps haven't been able to in the past. We are going to hopefully see some growth in energy, construction, and care sector. And then, of course, better retention due to the cost of living measures. So thinking about how that might impact you and your business. So hopefully you found that useful today. There are probably going to be some key things that change over the coming weeks and months. So if you are thinking about a business plan for next year, try not to have that set in stone. Try to think about how can you be agile over the next few months, certainly in the run up to the end of March, beginning of April of 2026, as we see Some of those key actions that have been put in place may come to fruition. They may not when we think about the Make Work Pay campaign, and keep an eye on the opportunities there to retain your current customer base. If you would like to have any further information, or you have any questions that you'd like to ask either myself or Marie directly, please do reach out to us. We both have a presence on LinkedIn. We'd be delighted to answer any of your questions that you might have. And if you'd like any support from Simplicity, please do get in touch with me or a member of my team. Marie, is there anything you'd like to say finally before we close off?
No, great summary, Vincent. And thanks for hosting today.
Thank you very much for being my partner in crime. We'll leave it there today. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a super weekend and that you get some fantastic bargains in some of those Black Friday deals.